At first glance, German pilots laughed at it. Too big, too heavy, too slow. They called the P-47 Thunderbolt a flying joke, but within months, that joke was tearing Luftwaffe squadrons out of the sky. This is the story of the fighter Germany underestimated and paid for in blood. The laughingstock of the sky, March 15, 1943. 27,000 feet above the Ruhr Valley, Nazi-occupied Germany. The roar inside the cockpit is deafening. A deep, grinding thunder that vibrates through metal, bone, and blood. Captain Hubert "Hub" Zemke, commander of the U.S. Army Air Force's 56 Fighter Group, tightens his gloved hand around the control stick as icy vapor curls across the canopy glass. Ahead, the sky is empty. Too empty. Somewhere beyond the thin cloud layer, German radar stations have already detected the American formation. Zemke knows it. Every pilot here knows it, because this is where the Luftwaffe hunts, and today they are flying an aircraft the Germans openly mock, the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt. Down below, flak bursts punch black scars into the pale sky. The bomber stream drones on ahead, B-17s lumbering toward factories that fuel Hitler's war. The fighter's job is simple: keep them alive. But German pilots don't see it that way. When the P-47 first appeared over Europe in late 1942, Luftwaffe intelligence officers laughed. It was huge, nearly 7 tons fully loaded. It was bulky, with a barrel-shaped fuselage and wings that looked too thick for grace. Compared to the sleek Messerschmitt Bf-109 and agile Focke-Wulf 190, the Thunderbolt looked like a flying anvil. German pilots nicknamed it Der Dicke, the fat one. They believed it would be slow to climb, easy to outturn, easy to kill. And in the early days, they weren't entirely wrong. Back in England, at muddy airfields carved into the countryside, American pilots had their own doubts. Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson, a young pilot fresh from training, stared at his assigned aircraft in disbelief the first time he saw it. The P-47 towered over him, its Pratt & Whitney R-2800 double wasp radial engine swallowing air through a gaping cowling. Feels like flying a bank vault, one pilot muttered. The Thunderbolt was not what American doctrine had envisioned. Pre-war planners dreamed of lightweight, nimble fighters. Instead, they got the heaviest single-engine fighter of the war. Early missions were brutal lessons. The P-47 burned fuel at a terrifying rate. Escort range was limited. Over Germany, pilots often had to turn back while bombers pushed on alone, straight into the waiting claws of the Luftwaffe. German aces noticed immediately. They climbed above the P-47s, dove through them with speed, fired, and vanished upward again. At altitude, the Thunderbolt struggled to climb back into position. Losses mounted, morale wavered. In Berlin, Luftwaffe reports described the new American fighter as inferior in maneuverability and unsuited for prolonged combat. The laughter continued, but something strange began appearing in combat reports. German pilots claimed to hit P-47s repeatedly, only to watch them keep flying. They saw Thunderbolts trailing smoke, riddled with holes, missing entire control surfaces, still escorting bombers back toward the English coast. At first, they assumed exaggeration. Then came the encounters no one could explain. April 8, 1943, near Saint-Lô, France. Lieutenant Robert Johnson is alone. His P-47 shudders violently as cannon shells tear through the fuselage. Oil sprays across the windscreen. The engine coughs, then somehow steadies. Johnson struggles to control the aircraft, believing each second is his last. Behind him, Hauptmann Egon Mayer, one of the Luftwaffe's rising aces, lines up for another shot. He fires again, and again. Johnson's Thunderbolt absorbs it all. Over 20-millimeter cannon shells, tearing through wings, fuselage, tail. The cockpit fills with smoke. Johnson blacks out briefly, then wakes to the sound of the engine still running. Mayer pulls away stunned. His ammunition is gone. The American is still flying. Johnson limps back to England. When ground crews count the damage, they find over 200 bullet and shell holes. The aircraft should not have survived, but it did, and the Luftwaffe is forced to confront a reality they did not anticipate. The Thunderbolt was not fragile. It was engineered to endure punishment no other fighter could. Its massive radial engine acted like a shield, absorbing damage that would instantly destroy a liquid-cooled aircraft. Its turbo supercharger, mounted deep in the fuselage, allowed it to fight at extreme altitude. Heavy armor plating protected the pilot, self-sealing fuel tanks prevented catastrophic fires, and then there was the firepower. 8.50 caliber Browning machine guns, synchronized to unleash a storm of lead unlike anything German fighters carried. 1 second of firing could shred aluminum. 2 seconds could erase an aircraft from the sky. Pilots began to understand. They stopped trying to dogfight the P-47. They started trying to run. By mid-1943, American commanders realized something crucial. The Thunderbolt didn't need to turn like a Messerschmitt. It needed to dive. From altitude, the P-47 became unstoppable. It could plunge faster than almost any aircraft in Europe, using gravity as a weapon. German fighters that tried to follow often exceeded safe speeds. Wings shaking, control surfaces locking up. The joke was turning. The Luftwaffe's laughter faded into unease. Because the P-47 wasn't just surviving anymore, it was learning how to kill. The turning point, August 17, 1943. 30,000 feet above Schweinfurt, Germany. The sky explodes into chaos. Tracer fire arcs like burning comets. German fighters scream upward from below, clawing for altitude as the American bomber stream crawls toward the ball-bearing factories that keep the Reich's war machine alive. Captain Hubert Zemke watches it unfold through his gun sight. This time, the Thunderbolts do not flinch. They are no longer climbing blindly into the fight. They are already above it. Zemke tilts his P-47 forward, and the world drops away. The dive is terrifying. The Thunderbolt accelerates like a falling safe, air screaming around the canopy, the needle on the airspeed indicator spinning into territory German pilots fear. Control surfaces remain solid. The aircraft holds together. Below, a formation of Focke-Wulf 190 scatters too late. Zemke squeezes the trigger. 8.50 caliber machine guns erupt in unison. A solid vibrating wall of sound. Tracers stitch across a German fighter's fuselage. Metal disintegrates. The FW-190 snaps into a spin and vanishes into cloud. No turning, no chasing. Just one brutal pass. Then the Thunderbolt is gone, diving straight through the formation and pulling away at a speed no enemy aircraft can safely follow. This is no longer a joke. This is doctrine. By late 1943, the P-47's role transforms. American commanders stop trying to force it into turning battles. Instead, they exploit what it does best: speed in the dive, firepower in the pass, and survival under fire. The Luftwaffe feels the shift immediately. German pilots now write of a fighter that attacks from above with overwhelming force, then disappears before retaliation is possible. They call it the Jug, half mockery, half fear. But the Thunderbolt's deadliest chapter has yet to begin. January 1944. Southern England. Snow clings to the edges of concrete runways as ground crews bolt steel pylons under Thunderbolt wings. Bomb racks, rocket rails. The P-47 is becoming something new, something far more terrifying. As Allied planners prepare for Operation Overlord, they need an aircraft that can do what bombers and artillery cannot: reach deep behind enemy lines, strike fast, and survive concentrated fire from the ground. The Thunderbolt is perfect. It can carry 2,500 pounds of bombs. It can fire rockets capable of ripping open tanks, and it can fly home with holes that would down any other fighter. June 6, 1944. Normandy, France, D-Day. The beaches are chaos, smoke, fire, and steel. German armor scrambles inland to counter the invasion. Then the Thunderbolts arrive. From treetop height, P-47s roar across the countryside like airborne artillery. Rockets slam into convoys. Machine gun fire sighs through trucks, half-tracks, and locomotives. German soldiers learn to fear a new sound: a deep, approaching thunder followed by sudden annihilation. Pilots like Colonel Francis "Gabby" Gabreski make the Thunderbolt legendary. Gabreski racks up 28 aerial victories, many against Germany's best. proving the P-47 can dominate fighters and devastate ground targets in the same mission. The Luftwaffe tries everything. They attack from below, from the sun, in groups, in desperation. It doesn't matter. Thunderbolts return missing chunks of wing, entire cylinders shot out of engines, cockpits soaked in oil. Pilots alive. Always alive. By 1945, the balance of air power is shattered. The Luftwaffe is bleeding experienced pilots faster than it can replace them. Fuel shortages ground aircraft. Training hours collapse. And overhead, the P-47 reigns. Not elegant, not light, but unstoppable. German officers no longer laugh when Thunderbolts appear in reports. They circle the name. They underline it. They know what it means. The aircraft once dismissed as oversized and clumsy ends the war with a staggering record. Over 15,000 ground targets destroyed, thousands of enemy aircraft eliminated. One of the highest survival rates of any Allied fighter. The P-47 Thunderbolt did not win by finesse, it won by endurance. By absorbing punishment, delivering violence, and coming back again. Mission after mission, until the Luftwaffe simply broke. Long after the skies over Europe fall silent, wrecked Thunderbolts sit abandoned on muddy airfields. Bent metal, shattered canopies, proof of something the Luftwaffe learned too late. They laughed at the P-47 until it became the sound of their defeat.